month's topic of, canopy and B corporations, and, and I'm going to reference that a little bit in my conversation with you tonight. So let me just get this started. I'm going to get my slideshow up here. Okay. So what we'll be talking about tonight is what I call a framework for helping you focus in how you want to empower your money for good, and specifically by bringing your values and what matters to you into your money life. And we'll, of course, talk about socially responsible investing a bit because that is my deeper work in the world, but we're actually going to talk much beyond that as well. And again, like Julie said, please write your questions down. I'm leaving lots of time for questions, or put them in the chat so we get them and we can talk about them. So she did an intro for me. A couple of things I'll add is I am a certified financial planning professional. I'm socially responsive investment advisor. So all we do at Natural Investments is socially responsible investing and impact investing. That's our specialization. And we're really one of the lead firms in the country, one of the first firms in the country. The firm Natural Investments was founded over 30 years ago, and we have about 20 advisors across the country. 3 of those advisors are here in Louisville, myself and Andy Loving and Joel Kerner. And so we've, our firm's been doing this for a long time, and really is one of the leadership voices in this space, in the socially responsible investing space. And also something that I specialize in is working with women and their loved ones who are in financial transition. So financial transition refers to what you might think of as a windfall of money, but a lot of times who I work with are inheritors. So they're going through, or they're anticipating going through the experience of inheriting. And if you're on the outside looking in, a lot of times inheriting seems like a wonderful thing, but actually can be very complicated and emotionally charged and challenging, and navigating relationships. So there's a lot that people navigate when they experience inheritance. And I have a specialization in helping women go through that so that they not only can engage in their money life in a confident way for themselves and their loved ones, but also help align their investments with their values. Okay, I think I got everything there. Okay, so this is a simple framework. This is not rocket science, but that's hopefully the beauty of it is these are key areas of your money life. We're going to walk through each of these areas, and I'll introduce them, and then we'll come back around and I'll take you through an example of climate change and how it can be reflected in these areas of your money life. So we'll start at the top. Giving. I think this is the first place that people start when they think about connecting their values and what matters to them to their money life. They start with how they're giving. Some people are really thoughtful and intentional about creating a giving plan or a giving strategy. They know these are, this thing and this thing, or that, are the top most important things to them. And they have organizations that they give to that have mission focused on that. We just talked with, Nicole was just talking about the organization that she works with. And for me, one of the things that matters most to me is protecting the natural areas in Kentucky, and particularly, the organization she works with helps protect one of the only old growth forests left in Kentucky. So that is very special and a treasure, not only for Kentucky, but for the bigger region. And so anyway, that's a really important organization for me and definitely part of my giving. So that's kind of a no-brainer, right? So I think the second place people go, and a lot of us have gone to already, is what to buy. Sorry, I just have to move the the Zoom panel, what to buy. So just skip over to what to buy or how you spend your money. So this is how you spend or how you buy or where you don't buy, where you don't spend, what you don't spend money on. And so that has tons of layers. Every day we're making choices around how we direct money, what we buy, and how that reflects or doesn't what matters to us. And so let me take a step back, because I think this is where people can start to feel a little bit like, this is very imperfect. I can't do, there's so much to do. I do this so imperfectly. And so what this framework is and is not, I think I have this in the next slide and I jumped ahead a little bit, but let me just go ahead and say that what this framework is not another way to make you feel guilty for not being perfect. And it's not a tool that expects perfection. It's just a way to help you recognize what you're already doing, and then also to help you focus on what more you might want to do in the near future, or bring intention to in a shorter timeline. So that's all it is. And what I say about action and perfection and imperfection, being a recovering perfectionist myself, is that the only way we can create positive change in the world is through imperfect action, because nothing is perfect. No action that we take. There's so many examples of this, our food choices, our clothing choices, our housing choices. There's nothing that we can do that is pure and perfect. And so what we need to do is just figure out what feels aligned for us, what feels like the right fit for us as we move forward in taking action with our money and our values. Okay, so back to what you buy. Tons of layers to this here. I'll walk through an example in a little bit, but I think you probably get this one already. And hopefully you're already thinking about what you already do. What are you already doing? Buying, going to the farmer's market maybe, or going to the local bookstore or local food store rather than buying the big box store or the ordering, online books online, or whatever that might be for you. What are you already doing? I think that's an important place to start and to recognize. Okay, and then let's hop back up to business earnings or income. So some people have this is a really critical part for them. Other people, this just isn't much of an option, or it isn't as easy of an option. But some people do want, particularly business owners, you have more flexibility here. And this ties into talking about Canopy last month. Canopy is a fantastic example of how they are helping businesses walk through a process of being really thoughtful about how that business is reflecting the values of the business, of the people involved in that business, both internally and externally. So that's just fantastic. And with Natural Investments, we are a certified B Corporation, which he mentioned. That's a national, or actually international certification. So we're a certified B Corporation, and that's a really important commitment that we have as far as a company. All right, now we're going to circle down to where you bank. So where you bank is a fantastic opportunity. Where you bank and where you save, do those together. Sometimes those are the same place, a lot of times, and sometimes those are two separate or multiple places, different places. So where you bank and where you save is a great opportunity if you don't feel like you have much space within. For example, when we get up to investments, if you don't feel like you have much space there or don't have investments, then a lot of times many people do have a financial institution where they put their money. And so this is a fantastic way to start to reflect your values. And I'll give you some resources for doing that if you're interested. Some people don't realize even your credit sources, your credit card that you use, can reflect your values. I'm going to give you an example of that in just a minute, and then how you invest. We'll get into that a little bit more. All right, here though. So let me back up and say what this is. It is a source for focus and inspiration. And like I said, it's a way to help us take action And sometimes we sit in these spaces of abstract anxiety. We should be doing more, we should be doing better, and really taking us from that space. And also we can feel kind of overwhelmed about what to even do. There's so much that we could be doing and are not doing. And so this gives us some clarity on what feels like a good fit for our next best action. And again, what it's not a way to judge ourselves for falling short, or it's definitely not a way to add more to our already long to-do list. Okay. So we've gone through these. Okay, so I am going to give you a little bit more information about how you reflect your values in your investment life, or in your investments. I'm not doing a deep dive in understanding socially responsible investing, but I am going to introduce a few important concepts to getting started in this. So how you invest. So the way we frame investing at our firm, we help some clients do all publicly traded investing. That's investing in the stock market, investing in stocks and bonds, in mutual funds and ETFs. That's all under that big umbrella of publicly traded. And then we also do one of our specialties that really helps put some money into even more transforming our economic systems through investing, is in the space of private impact investing. And we can do some really exciting things there. So each of these spaces, you can reflect values that are related to concern about climate change, like fossil fuel-free investing, concern around racial and gender equity, social justice, human rights, renewable energy, even organic farmland and regenerative agriculture. We can do more of that in the private impact space, but even there's a bit of that in the publicly traded space, and then microfinance. So these are just some of the issues that can be reflected in your investment choices. And so socially responsible and impact investing uses 4 methods to create change. Here, and these are the 4 methods. Divesting, which you've probably heard about. I just mentioned fossil fuel divesting is one that's very current and now very well established. This also can be called negative screening. So the original approach to socially responsible the first ways of to apply that socially responsible investing was applied is through negative screening or divesting. So whether that is divesting out of tobacco or defense contractors, nuclear energy, there's a number of really common standard negative screens that are used in socially responsible investing to something like fossil fuel-free investing. And then the next method for creating change is through impact investing, or what could be called positive screening. So that's where you're putting money towards something that you want to see more of. So renewable energy is a great example of that. Regenerative agriculture is a great example of that. Microfinance, supporting small women business owners, for example, fantastic example of that. That kind of overlaps with the next one too, which is community investing. And so community investing is putting some of your dollars, your investment dollars, toward investments that really support people in communities that have historically been marginalized or shut out of our financial and economic systems. So a lot of times community investments focus on very rural and very urban areas. And definitely Kentucky, there are some, there's really important community investing happening. For example, right now, it's not an investment that our clients tend to put, it's not structured typically for our clients, but one way to do community investing in Louisville is El Home, which is a fantastic community financial development institution. And they are getting capital, helping capital flow back into communities to very small business owners that historically have been very marginalized. So it's a really important part of socially responsive and impact investing. And a lot of times, some of these strategies that you see out here that are really marketed heavily, like low carbon ETF, invest in this low carbon ETF. Well, low carbon ETF, as you might imagine, maybe is divested, maybe not fully divested. They just said low carbon. They didn't say fossil fuel free. So they may be positive, invested in some positive things, maybe not. You might, sometimes we look at those ETFs and think, oh, that's not that great of an investment. And as far as the values piece. And then community investing, a lot of times that's absolutely not a space that they're in. And then the fourth one that usually something like a low carbon ETF is not, it's not on the radar at all, not something they're built for, is shareholder advocacy. And that's another really critical pillar or method for creating change through socially responsible investing. So shareholder advocacy can include voting proxies as a shareholder on important issues, resolutions within a company. So there might be a resolution that's related to board diversity, transparency of sourcing, do they have reporting on how, for example, some Kellogg's was asked to have transparent reporting on how they source palm oil. And that's super critical for climate change issues if you're familiar with the palm oil issue. So shareholder advocacy was really key in getting Kellogg's to agree to do that. They did not go willingly, but they did go after enough work with them to make that happen. So these can be very powerful and game-changing. Okay, so here are some resources, just going back to areas of the circle. I kind of started a little early going around the circle here, but coming back to some of the resources to share. So where you bank and where you save. If you're interested in digging more into how to choose a bank that better reflects your values, Better Banking Options was actually created by my colleagues here locally. Their local business is called Just Money Advisors, Andy Loving and Susan Taylor and their daughter Sarah. And they have this fantastic search site that they've built called Better Banking Options, and you can get on there and look at the local financial institutions and see which ones. They have different criteria for rating them. They explain it very well, and then they show you. They've also curated a fantastic list of nationally Black owned or Black led banks and financial institutions. So that's a very helpful list as well. And then Green America, if they are not on your radar, they are a fantastic resource for lots of different areas of greening our life. And so they have a guide called Break Up with Your Mega Bank. And I love it because it is a step-by-step, and actually Better Banking Options has this as well, a step-by-step guide on, okay, you're ready to move to maybe a local bank or a bank that focuses on renewable energy or does more in the community. So you're ready to make the move. That feels overwhelming, and they really walk you through how to make that move less overwhelming with their step-by-step guide. Credit unions, of course, are a great option locally. If one of your values relates to local economies, local communities, local resilience, then credit unions or local financial institutions can be great options. And then some of the other credit unions that we use that our clients tend to be interested in using, they're not local necessarily, but Hope Credit Union was founded and is based in the Mississippi Delta area and has a big presence in the Mississippi Delta area, has expanded. They're even coming into Kentucky and are having more and more presence here. I think I just saw an article the other day about something they're doing in Louisville. And they are fantastic. They've even gotten national notice. Big companies like Netflix I think Netflix pledged, they've put 10 million, or they're putting $10 million there in deposits to help support the credit union in growing, because they are Black run and really are one of the financial institutions in the country that best serve Black communities where they're located, and which is a big deal. If you know about banking, that's a really big deal. So and then another one is Self-Help Credit Union, which is located, they're based in North Carolina, and they also are very community focused, very mission focused in what they do. So we tend to have clients who are interested in banking there as well. Okay, credit sources. So Green America also has a fantastic resource called Take Charge of Your Card. And I used this myself a number of years ago when I was looking into this personally. And I just pulled a snapshot of a couple of cards that they give examples for. But again, a lot of times people don't even realize your credit card can be doing some good as well. So instead of going to another bank, big bank or whatever, Bank of America credit card or whatever it is, you can have for example, a Green America credit card. And so the profits from the credit card go back into supporting the mission of Green America, which is fantastic. And they have they have a super simple to digest, fantastic kind of how-to with more examples, not only the two that I show here, the Amazon Watch card and the Green America, but they have more examples there of credit cards that could reflect your values. Okay, I just want to kind of check in here. I've got a few more slides, but I want to get a sense of where people are at, what kind of questions you've got before I take us any further.
Carrie, you've got a question in the chat box. Are the returns equivalent to standard investing? I understand that there is no standard. Maybe more traditional investing should be the phrase.
Yeah, so I call it conventional investing. And yes, that's one of the big questions that people tend to have about socially responsible investing. And it's because there's still, even today in 2021, there's still the financial industry itself still really propagates this myth of you have to sacrifice return to reflect your values in your investments. Now, and let me say, let me back up and say that, 30 years ago, you might be able to do socially responsible investing in a certain part of your investment life, but, maybe your stocks could be somewhat focused on socially responsible investing, but maybe not your fixed income side of your investments, for example. But in 2021, there have been many, many years now, there's been tons of research done that shows that it has no effect to little effect to sometimes depending on the research that you pull, some of the studies even show positive effect of screening or doing socially responsible investing versus conventional investing. And I think when, a really significant recent example of that is last year. The people who were divested out of fossil fuels early in 2020, when the fossil fuel industry, the oil industry was really tanking, the people who were divested out of fossil fuels really benefited in returns, because they were not invested in oil. So, I think that's just a long time myth, and there's tons of research out there that shows that that's not the case. So, yep, Barbara.
With Home, I know you can make donations to them, but you were talking about investing in them.
Yeah, so I probably, that's a little bit of a gray area for them. There are I'll say, you might know this, Barbara, but I'll just say this for the full group's benefit, that there are some CDFIs. Home is a CDFI, which is a community development financial institution. It's a federal regulated financial institution that has a focus on community development, as it sounds like. So some CDFIs around the country are set up to accept investments from individual investors, and some are not. And so because Home is so early in their growth as as an entity, I think they just started maybe 5 or so years ago. Is that right? Yeah, it's not, they haven't been around super long. Some CDFIs have been around decades and decades. So LHOME is still building out ways that they can receive capital in, so they can get the capital out to people and the communities that need it. And I know that they have accepted some individual investments from individuals, Barbara, but I am not super familiar with how that has been structured or who qualifies to be able to do that with them. So yeah. Anything else? What I want to do next is take the example of climate change and really walk it through these different areas and give examples and ask you to help me give examples of this. So that's where I want to go next. But again, I just want to do a check-in and see what's on people's minds before we get there. Okay, let's go there. All right, so you are welcome to use the chat box for this, or if you want to jump in, unmute yourself and jump in. Because we are such a small group, that we can do it that way as well. I think it'll be fun. So we're using the example of climate change. There's so much possibility for what that means for you. I'm assuming that's an issue that matters to you because you're here in this, with green drinks tonight. So how might you reflect how might you reflect your values or around that issue of climate change in your giving? Or what's an example of how it can be reflected in giving?
Well, donating to LSC on Give for Good Day.
Yes,
sure.
Great, perfect example, Kim. Thank you.
I mean, giving to all sorts of nonprofits like Sierra Club or Inside Climate News, or I mean, there are so many.
So many. Yeah, this is a big one. So many. So what's like a favorite that you have? Feel free to just throw that out or put that in the chat. In addition to LSC.
I like giving to Kentucky Natural Lands Trust. KNLT, Kentucky Natural Lands Trust.
Thank you, Barbara. And I'm partial,
Nicole.
but I also like giving to Kentucky Natural Lands Trust and all of our land trust partners around the state that are doing good work. And LSC.
One of my favorites is also KNLT, yes, and then also Kentucky Heartwood, as far as supporting, healthy environment in Kentucky. I feel like they do some great advocacy work as well. Okay, so those are examples. Kentucky Waterways Alliance. Thanks, Elise, for being here.
ACC.
Say that again.
The Kentucky Conservation Commission. What is it? Not commission. Coalition.
Yes.
What's the KCC?
Yeah. So there's so many. And you could even get more. You can make more connections with your values. So we're kind of doing like pure, what we talked about, I think Barbara might have mentioned Sierra Club is one. So you could have a national focus or an international focus. You could have a local or statewide focus. You could connect it with something else like women and the environment, or, so if you have multiple values that you want, I love when multiple values of mine can come together and be reflected in one of the, in the way I'm directing money. So that's wonderful too. So, and then we're not really going to do business. I think we've got great examples of that. I guess what I will say about business is more around the really going into what you buy. So connecting it back to Canopy and businesses that are very local community grocery. Yes, me too, Nicole, me too. That's a great example of where you bring in multiple values, multiple areas that matter to you into one space of giving, or one entity that you're giving to. All right, what you buy. So actually, I'm just going to be quiet. And what are examples of where you're putting, like, let's just use it as cheering, patting, giving yourself a little pat on the back for something you're already doing. How are you making choices about what you buy or how you spend your money or how you don't spend your money as far as your values? Yeah, Becca, farmer's market.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Yes.
Mhm.
What you don't buy. Yes. Or what you borrow. Yeah. CSAs. Yeah, totally, Barbara.
Buying at the
Examples.
store instead of buying something brand new off the rack.
Consignment. Yeah. Fantastic.
And supporting, so I'm getting ready to do a big backpacking trip, and I've had to go out and invest in a couple of things because my clothes don't fit anymore. And thanks COVID. But investing in companies like Patagonia, where I know that they have values that parallel my values versus other larger outdoor store folks, has felt good when I do have to spend that money.
Yeah, they're fantastic. They do so much. And they really take a stand.
They do.
Yeah. Super. Anything else you want to share about how you're already doing something related to what you buy?
Try to reduce on packaging.
Mm. And Barbara, does that guide
one.
spending choices for you? Is that part of it? Like, so you're buying things that you're making a choice that might have something that might have less packaging versus something that you see. Yeah.
Especially plastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's been a really hard one during COVID because we've been doing a lot of carry out. And so we've been making a list of places that use styrofoam for their carry out and choosing to not go back there. And then really going to places that are making solid choices like Wiltshire Pantry, who does all compostable everything for their carry out packaging.
That's fantastic.
Would love to see that list, Nicole.
It's very unsophisticated at this point, but I would be happy to share it. And
That's a great idea.
Because it could have changed. And I've given that feedback to a lot of our local restaurants just to say like, hey, we love you guys, but we'd love you more if you would stop using plasticware. So I don't know if anybody's changed their style. Probably not, because it's a more of a cost investment on their end, but
you never know how those seeds get, like there could be other people, that express that as well. So. Okay, fantastic. So we'll move to where you bank. And so again, we're talking about climate change, any issues that are reflected, how your values are reflected in this issue of climate change, and then where you bank. So I mentioned, banking locally might feel very connected for you if you're focused on, community building and community resilience, local economies, and keeping money local, and all of that might feel in some way connected to the bigger issue of navigating climate change as we, go into the future. And so where you bank might feel connected there. Also, there's Clean Energy Credit Union is a newer credit union based in Colorado, but they're available to anybody across the US. And if that piques your interest, you can see their website, like their mission and the vision of what they want to do. They were very intentionally created in this space of clean energy and to help move dollars to help more clean energy, help support clean energy types of initiatives. So anyway, they're fantastic. Not local, but they're a great resource as well. Anything else you want to share about where you bank and kind of what thoughts that brings up for you about how you might connect that to this issue of climate change?
I've got to be honest, Carrie, I have never thought about how my bank connects to climate change or even just my personal values. It has honestly never crossed my mind before this.
Yay. I'm glad that this is something that, yeah, is a new idea that, to think about. I think where my brain goes to also, aspiration. Yes. So aspiration has an environmental type focus to, and they're online banking, right? Online banking company. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Where my brain,
they're online.
and what's your experience been like with them so far? How long have you banked with them?
So I'll be honest, I have a couple of banks because I moved around quite a bit. So it's just been helpful for me to keep banks different places. So I have a local and then I have one back. I'm from New England. I have one back there. But then I also started using Aspiration, and I don't have anything negative to say. They have a program where you can give 0 or you can give like a percentage, any amount you choose, as like, I guess kind of a fee. You probably know the official way to say that.
Oh yes.
Other than that, every time you like use your debit card, I think they plant a tree or something like that. And then they support the Redwood Fund, which then makes it like really easy to invest and like kind of get into investing, which has been a little bit new for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have an investment product called the Redwood Fund or something like that. Is a SRI type fund. Yes. Awesome. Okay, good. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. The other thing I was going to, sorry, were you going to say something else, Kim? Okay, no. Another thing I was going to, some thoughts about where you bank. That's also an area for divesting, I think, is a big thing around banking. So once you learn like more about what the top 10 banks, what they do and what their funding is, what the capital that flows through them that we can put with them and what they do with it. So, Bank of America is a good one to just learn more about like how they perpetuate the extractive and exploitive economic systems that we have and how they're such an integral part of maintaining the status quo of those systems. And so how powerful it is when we, can move money away from, a root problem like that. And then there was even Wells Fargo comes to mind too. Wells Fargo was one of the biggest capital providers for the Dakota Access Pipeline when there were all the, Keystone XL, the protests happening and trying to shut the pipeline down. And am I getting those confused? But Dakota Access Pipeline. And so Wells Fargo was one of the biggest banks that was involved in that project. And so divesting out of Wells Fargo, can be a way for activism, related to your values there. So, okay. And I think credits. Yes.
Well, I was just going to add one thing. I used the tool that your colleagues had created, the Better Banking.
Yeah.
And I was really excited that my bank came up as one of the top banks, L&N Federal Credit Union. I love them. They're super local and they're great. But I had I still, and I've only been looking at the website for a couple minutes. So I still am not sure how to read this to see whether L&N actually has like any kind of fossil fuel divestment or socially conscious investment, or if they're just better than the other local or non-local options in Louisville.
So with Better Banking Options, their primary tool is to help you find a local bank, but it's not necessarily going to filter or reflect anything related to something like climate change.
Gotcha.
It's really about local. And what they're going to rate, some of their top, the rate, how they're rating that L&N really, it maybe is at the top.
I think
one
it's
of the very top.
It's one of the top ones, but they still only get like a 50-something% rating on the score.
Yeah, but when you compare it to some other financial institutions, it's like very significant. That rating is very significant. So
good.
And so why they get that high rating is because they are putting a large amount of money back into the community through mortgage loans and small business loans.
Mm.
And the research shows that in banks, when they have a high rate of doing both of those things, investing back into the community through both of those ways, the vehicles, if they can really make positive impact in the community.
Great.
Yeah.
We'll tell them thank you next time I have to talk to them.
Yeah. Yes, Barbara. Let me share one more thought, and then let's go to your charity navigator there. Another thought there is, so in using this framework, and Nicole, your example there, so they're going to, that choice about where you bank might reflect a certain value, but it's not going to be everything that you want to have reflected. So that's where you might invest in a way that's fossil fuel free, but then you're going to bank in a way that really supports local economy. And I think that's the beauty of being really thoughtful about how your values, connect and also are cover different values, different, things that matter to you. Sometimes giving is the best way to put your money towards a certain value. It's just not going to be as easy to do that in your investments, but in what you buy, that's also such a powerful way so anyway, I just like how these can be in relationship with each other to reflect a bigger picture of what matters to you. Okay. Yeah. Barbara, please.
So getting back to philanthropy, I always try and look up, and I use Charity Navigator because it's easy for me to look up and see how much the CEO makes and how much the officers make, because I'm really not interested in, someone having a salary of a nonprofit of over $1 million. I'm really not even interested in someone who makes more than $200,000. And actually, Greenpeace, the woman that ran that up until recently, got $100,000 for her being CEO of Greenpeace. And I thought that was so honorable.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think the form is what, $9.90 or something.
Yeah.
But you can go and look at that $9.90 and see how much money actually goes to different parts of the nonprofit.
It's a great tool, and you can even do that with local nonprofits, and yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's all out there. I tend to agree with you, Barbara, and I think that there's a limit to what our expectations should be, because that is shocking about Greenpeace to me, honestly, just because of the number of people that they probably employ and the duties that the CEO probably takes on in a role like that. So I think sometimes we have to remember that in order for our nonprofit organizations to run effectively, they have to have really strong leaders, and they can't make no money. But there's a balance, and it's a spectrum. And you do see nonprofit organizations where the CEO makes $1 million, and it makes you wonder who is paying for that $1 million, and what does their pie look like? So it's something to think about. And the 990 is the most expedient way to find that information.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would add to that too. I think of if it's a woman or a person of color, I don't want them being underpaid or accepting being underpaid, at the same time. So yeah, finding that what feels like a good spot, a balance to that. Fantastic. Anything else? So I am pretty much, let me just finish up my slides and then we'll make sure we've answered all your questions. So for my compliance officer, some disclosures that basically just say nothing I've said is considered investment advice. Be sure to talk with your financial professional about your situation. And I think that might be all. Oh, and ways to connect with me there. I have a podcast called the Smart and Soulful Money podcast, just getting ready to start season 3. There is a fantastic conversation in one of the episodes with Sarah from Better Banking Options. It's so interesting to hear her talk about how you can bring your activism and your values to your banking choice. So that's a great episode you might be interested in. So yeah, any last questions or thoughts?
Well, I'd just like to say thank you for coming and presenting. This is definitely a little bit of a different type of green drinks, but it has really opened my eyes and given me a lot to process and noodle on for the night. I'm always really excited hearing about new ways to support my community and give back to my values and things that I care about. So thank you for being here and thank you for the work that you do.
Thanks, Julia. Thanks for having me.
I do have one last quick question if we have time for questions, and then I'm almost out of time. Are you familiar with Ellevest?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about them as far as a way to dip your toe into socially responsible investing?
Yeah, I have not been inside their platform, but so Ellevest is like a networking group for women, but then there's also Ellevest that's connected with it, which is this financial platform where they offer financial planning support. And then they also offer some you can open investment accounts there, or move your investment accounts there. And then they do some socially responsible investing strategies with that. They use some. So honestly, there's different platforms that have popped up that are similar to them over the years that I've watched. And they're really one of, as far as what they're like for the right person, I've recommended that for people. You know, if I like how they have a place for the conversation of money, women and money. You know, I think they're a very supportive platform to have a conversation around women and money and to help you building your assets, being thoughtful about that, engaging in some financial planning conversation or steps, and then getting started. Now I don't see that kind of platform being something that I would recommend to somebody who's got a certain amount of assets. But if you're getting started and wanting to start building an investment account or retirement account, I think it could be a nice platform to get people started.
Thanks.
Yeah. Anything else?
I want to know where